What I'm about to say here might be politically incorrect, but the facts don't lie. Immigrants are why you can't afford a house in the UK. Now, this is obviously a very political hot button issue, the issue of house prices. And many a political party has tried to tackle this over the years and failed spectacularly because they never addressed the core issue, which is the immigration issue in the UK. Now, immigration in the UK is a political subject that many people have strong opinions on either way. However, to keep away from the opinionated side of things and to keep this mostly on the financial side of things, the facts do not lie. Immigration is the reason why you can't afford to buy a house, and it is the reason why you are currently on track to be a rent forever loser for the rest of your life. I mean, just take a look at the graph here. In 2009, the average house price was about 150,000. Now, this was from 2021, I believe. It's now over 250,000. So it's completely doubled. Now, you may think, well, what about inflation? Has inflation caused a lot of this? It might have caused some of it. But the elephant in the room that everyone keeps ignoring when it comes to house prices is the fact that we have a massively bulging population. And that bulging population is not coming from white English people. It is coming from the immigrants to this country. Because let's be honest, the white British population are not reproducing. They're not having any kids. I'm a stark example of this. I'm not having any kids. I don't plan on having any kids. And if you look at demographic data, you'll see that pretty much the white British population are below replacement birth rate. We're very similar to the Japanese in that regard, in that we're just not having children, and that's just going to be the way it is now. But what's been happening in the past 20 odd years, especially in the last 5 years, is the population numbers that have been coming into this island have just been absolutely staggering. Now, the Office of National Statistics, I believe, says that the current UK population is around 68 million. That's probably up from about at least 5 million in the past 10 years, and that's at least. However, there is other data out there to suggest that even that 68 million figure, which is high enough as it is, the data suggests that even that figure is an underestimate because food analysts and sewage analysts are looking at the raw input and output from human beings, from human bodies in this country. And the numbers don't lie. I mean, you can't look at the amount of food that we're eating and the amount of shit that we're putting out of our arses and claim that we are currently at a population of 68 million. I would say we are currently around a population of 80 million. That's being a conservative estimate. A scary estimate would be 85 to 90 million. And so that really is why you can't afford a house. And that is why the government keeps coming up every year saying, oh, we're going to build 200,000 new homes, 300,000 new homes. First of all, they don't deliver on that promise more often than not. Usually that promise is a broken promise, and they end up delivering a lot less than what they can promise the country in terms of houses. But at the end of the day, with these figures, paving over the entire country, getting rid of all of our natural wonder in this country, getting rid of the soul of the land that's been here for thousands of years, paving it over to build a bunch of new barrack homes, that's not going to fix our issue, and it's just going to make the country even more of a miserable place to live in than it already is. So what's the personal financial takeaway from this whole disaster then around house prices? The personal takeaway is that you should stay away from the housing market in the UK for at least the next 5 to 10 years. For the next 5 to 10 years, the UK is going to go through a political turmoil. The immigration issue is going to boil over to breaking point. It's been bubbling under the surface for years and years, and liberals and the left wing establishment in this country have just not taken any notice of it, and it is going to come and bite them in the arse. Over the next 5 to 10 years, this problem is just going to get so ridiculous that people are not going to be able to ignore it anymore. Currently, what's happening with this issue is that Generation Z, my generation, we're just not moving out of our parents' houses by and large. You might have a few Gen Z friends who do have their own house, but even if they do have their own house, they're probably renting it. And quite frankly, that is not a sustainable economy. That is not a sustainable situation to have with most of your population on rent and a vast swathe of the younger generation just choosing to opt out the housing market entirely, rent or buying, and they are just living with their parents. What's going to happen with that is in the next 5 to 10 years, Generation Z are going to be getting into their 30s. And it's very much when you're about 30, 35 years old that you really start looking at the housing market then, and you start going, right, I need to move out of my parents' house pretty quick now. And what's going to happen is Generation Z are going to enter this housing market, and the figure's going to be even worse than what you see on the screen here. They're going to be looking at a standard one-bedroom house for like £300,000, £350,000, and the mortgages are going to be completely unfeasible as well because interest rates have been going up substantially for the last 3 to 4 years. So really, the big takeaway from this for you is that you should stay away from the housing market as much as possible. You know, the classic idiom in investing, but in all finances in general, is that you need to buy low and sell high. Now, if you buy a house right now in 2024 in the UK housing market, you are buying high. Look at this graph on your screen here. You will be buying your house at a ridiculously high value. This is completely overvalued for what the property actually is. The 2010 figure around here, around 170-ish thousand pounds, that is what the average real value of a UK house is. If we account for inflation, let's say maybe 190,000 maximum, so around about the 2014 figure there. Even then, you know, the current figure that we're at the moment and the projected figures that we're almost guaranteed to go under now with this new Labour government into the 2030s, it's going to be so astronomically high that you would have to be either completely desperate for a house right now or a complete moron to jump on the housing market right now. What I would say to anyone who absolutely needs a house right now, you know, you've got a partner, you're wanting to start a family, join the rent bandwagon. It's what everyone's doing, you know. The rent bandwagon is what people do when they can't afford house prices, really. And the rent bandwagon will sustain you over this next 5 to 10 years of political and economic volatility, especially in the housing sector. But yes, I mean, this channel is called North FC Investing. I'm from the north of England, and one of the key tenets of this channel is that we don't bullshit here. We don't beat around the bush. We don't do what aristocratic liberals do, where, you know, they'll mince their words and they'll go, actually, it's not immigration. Actually, it's this really convoluted reason that even the most ginormous 140 IQ megamind can't figure it out. No, come on, a potato could figure this out. There's 80 odd million people in this country. There's far too many people in this country. The housing market can't sustain it. The infrastructure can't sustain it. This is a big number one reason as to why we are in broken Britain. It is the immigration issue. And that is actually why Reform UK saw such a huge surge in voter share in the 2024 election. I mean, for a political party that was basically nothing about 2 years ago, it was just Richard Tice and a few boomers banging on about, you know, right-wing policies, not even right-wing, more centrist policies. For that party to soar into potentially the new opposition party within the matter of basically 3 weeks when Nigel Farage joined the party. That should be a huge signal to the left-wing establishment and to liberals who think they can just delude themselves forever on this. That should be a huge signal that reality is coming to slap you in the face. And what reality is saying is that house prices are way too high. And the reason house prices are way too high is because the demand far outstrips the supply. Now, why does the demand far outstrip the supply, I wonder? It's because there's too many people in this country. You've got 80 odd million people crammed onto this tiny island that's smaller than California in the United States. Reality will come. Do not fear about that. Reality will come and bite the Liberals in their backsides, because you cannot have an economy like this. It will inflate into oblivion, everyone will be in an utter disaster, and people will just cry out for political change. And I predict that that will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. So my advice on the UK housing market is stay well clear of it for the next decade. In the 2030s, maybe when we have a Reform UK government or some other kind of centrist right government in power by then, maybe then the situation will be fizzling out enough for house prices to start falling and for it to become feasible to enter the market. But until then, yes, definitely just stay well clear of the UK housing market. If you're Generation Z, keep living with your parents. If you've got a partner, start renting. If you've got a family, start renting, and just wait until house prices inevitably fall. I mean, one argument that people might make is that, oh no, it's just because we're not making enough houses. That's a common argument you hear on the liberal side of things, is we just don't make enough houses. If only we made 1 trillion houses every 2 seconds, then we would be able to house the entire planet's population in our country. No, that is not going to happen. What is going to happen is that the housing market is going to crash completely. There is going to be massive political change and probably a few benefits reforms in the benefits system that will cause a net outflow of migration. And once we have a net outflow of migration that's pretty substantial, then you will start to see all of these excess properties, all these new Barratt homes that have been built everywhere in the north of England and elsewhere, all of those properties are going to start, and properties elsewhere in the United Kingdom at large, that as the population drops, more houses will be available. Once again, it's not rocket science. If the population drops by a significant margin, then there's going to be a lot more property to go around, and prices are going to come straight back to reasonable levels. So with that in mind, just hold on to your horses. Do not get excited for a house just yet. Wait 5 to 10 years and come back to the market when the UK isn't stuffed so far up its arse that it can see its own eyes.